Morning here, so I'm a little bit husky in my throat. My voice is a bit husky. I mean, it's quite morning voice. So we're looking at Grammar in Theory and in Practice, which is my book, and we've already looked at chapter 1, which is on determiners. This book goes through each and every part of speech because I'm a big fan of parts of speech. I think most people don't study or didn't study. When I was at school, most UK pupils didn't study parts of speech. Grammar was thought to be superfluous, boring, useless, basically. And things have now changed. People have come back to an understanding that the Greeks were right and that parts of speech are actually really, really useful. And understanding parts of speech will help you understand language to a much deeper level. So we've done determiners. Now we're going to move on to nouns, because the second chapter in my book, it starts with determiners and then we go on to nouns. And if you click on nouns, it will go straight to nouns, because this book does have hyperlinks. If anybody's interested in buying this book, then you can buy it on Amazon. By looking for Grammar in Theory and in Practice, you'll find it very quickly. But if you go to my website, you'll be able to buy a PDF. And if you're thinking of buying the electronic version, I think the PDF on my website is much better than the electronic version on Amazon. I mean, the format and the way that it looks, I think it's much better if you buy the PDF from my website. And so please do go to my website. You can buy the PDF for my grammar book, but you can also buy the PDF for my phrasal verbs book. And both of these books are still selling very well. So I want to thank everybody out there for supporting me and buying my books. Now, nouns is the topic for chapter 2 of this book. And it starts by, bear in mind, I wrote this book for native speakers, not for TEFL students. I wrote it for native speakers. And I wrote it with my own children in mind, because I'm well aware that most of the things that I've learned over the last 20 years won't be taught to my kids and it's because they aren't usually taught to kids in the UK. And so I wanted to put everything down in a book, which made a lot of sense. I mean, all of the parts of speech seemed to be logically arranged so that somebody could read the book and then look at any other book and identify every single part of speech, see the rhetorical devices that the writer is employing, and things like that. So that's the aim of this book. And yes, it is aimed at natives. So a lot of natives have never heard of subject, verb, object, for example. Yeah, a lot of natives are linguistically unaware, I would say, grammatically unaware as well. And I'm sure you realize this as well in your own countries, that people don't usually think about what a verb is, what a noun is, what an adjective is. And so that's why a lot of the beginning of each chapter, it can be quite basic, and subjects and objects, I consider this quite basic, yeah? But I have to go through it to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And so this is a little bit about subject, verb, object. I think it's pretty easy. And then I talk about identifying nouns, determiners, verbs, and adjectives. And there is a hell of a lot of practice of this, guys, in this book. But that's because I think it's by doing exercises like this that you get better and better and better, and that you really understand what it means to be a determiner, what it means to be a noun, what it means to be an adjective, what it means to be a preposition. And so here is an exercise. And of course, if you want to check your answers, maybe you've said to yourself, right, the, determiner, quick, adjective, brown, adjective, fox, noun, jumped, verb. You can quickly check by clicking on the answers, and it will tell you the, determiner, quick, adjective, brown, adjective, fox, noun, jumped, verb. So we got all of that right. And then you can click on the hyperlink to go back to the old page. So I just wanted to show you that this ebook works quite nicely, and it's because I paid somebody to do all the hyperlinks. I didn't do them myself. And so if you go to my website, you'll get this version. That's where you go to get this version if you're interested. So that's really parts of speech practice exercise 1, and that's because I think parts of speech are really useful. Same with exercise 2, yeah? And so it's asking you to label verbs, prepositions, determiners, adjectives, and nouns. So I don't want to go through that. Then it goes on to pronouns, and it points out that there are many different types of pronoun. There are subject pronouns, I, you, he, she, we, they, and who in a relative clause. There are object pronouns, me, you, him, her, us, them, and whom. By the way, somebody pointed out yesterday, somebody put a comment on one of my videos that I had used who instead of whom in one of my sentences. Now, let me make this clear. Find me a UK native who uses whom every single time that he should, and I will be shocked. I'll give you a medal because they don't exist. Whom is very rarely used in speech by natives. Yeah, very rarely used. Nobody feels the need to use it. Everybody just seems to use who for subject and object in a relative clause in everyday English. And so, yes, I, like everybody else, have don't really feel whom. I don't really feel it as an element in my language. I just use who. And most, 99%, I reckon, of UK speakers don't really use whom in speech. But please, point out someone to me that always uses whom, and I'll listen to them carefully and see if that's actually the case. Because I think everybody has stopped using whom, really. In written letters, for example, schools are very proud of the fact that they know when to use a whom. But let's be honest, nobody's doing it in their speech. Most kids are growing up not even never using whom. It sounds quite posh to a lot of people, whom. And so, yeah, be aware that the majority of people know they don't use whom in everyday English. But this is what it is. It's an object pronoun. This is where it comes from. It's just like him. You also have possessive forms, which are the determiners. These are actually determiners. Possessive pronouns are adjectives, really. They describe a noun. My car. My tells you whose car it belongs to. Yeah, whose car it is. It tells you who the car belongs to, or whom the car belongs to. Yeah. So these are all determiners. My, your, his, her, our, their, and whose is the relative pronoun. And it's for, without an apostrophe, for when a thing possesses something. Okay, strong possessive. These are not determiners. These are nouns. When you say whose hat is that, and you say it is mine, mine is a pronoun because it stands in for my hat. Yeah, and so it's standing in for a thing. This is a thing. This is a thing. This is a thing. These are pronouns, strong possessive pronouns. They are not determiners, these ones. They stand in for a pronoun, a possessive pronoun and a noun at one and the same time. Okay, and you've got the reflexive pronouns, myself, yourself, himself, herself, ourself, themselves. And in the next exercise, we're trying to fix a problem that many natives have, which is that they mix up I and me. And I've got to say that this was certainly the case for me. I mixed up I and me loads as a kid. And when I went abroad to teach, I had to tell students that for me, my friends and I is incredibly formal, as opposed to me and my friends when you're using them as subject. Now, of course, this isn't correct, but many UK speakers say, me and my friends went to the shops. Yeah, they don't say my friends and I went to the shops. They say, me and my friends went to the shops. Now, that's wrong, of course. You can't say me went to the shops. And so me is wrong because it's object, not subject. But loads of native speakers have this problem of mixing up I and me. And when you think about it, it's even there in the language. I mean, let me give you an example. When you pick up the phone, usually you say, it's me, right? Who is it? It's me. Yeah. Most people would say, it is me, or it is her, or it is them. And this is actually incorrect. It should be, it is I, it is you, it is they, it is he who stole the money, for example. Yeah, it is he who stole the money, and not it's him who stole the money. But we use the object most of the time now in speech. Yeah, we say it's him, it's me. And kids say me when they want to, when they put their hand up and they want to volunteer for something. Who wants to do this? Me want to do this. Yeah, no, I want to do this. Yeah, and so there is this confusion between me and I for natives, and it's a very common mistake, and that's why we just quickly practice it in this exercise. Although I do agree, it's quite, it's quite Easy. And so me and Katie went to the park. Of course, that's wrong. Katie and I went to the park. They went swimming with Steve and I. No, that's wrong. I think sometimes people hypercorrect and they think, okay, I need to say I every time instead of me. And of course, that's not right. We need with me because this is the object of the preposition with. So they went swimming with Steve and me. He gave Amy and me the presents, not and I. Charlotte and I got ice creams. That's correct. Yeah, Charlotte and I got ice creams. Me and Paul got a detention. That's wrong. Paul and I got a detention. Without Rachel and I? No, without Rachel and me, they didn't know what to do. By sheer luck, Sheila and me got a place. No, Sheila and I got a place. That's the subject of the verb got. And if we hadn't decided to mess around with the paint, Andy and I wouldn't have been told off. That's correct, yeah, because Andy and I is subject of the verb wouldn't have been told, yeah. Look at all of that, those auxiliaries and auxiliary verbs and modal verbs there. You've got wouldn't, modal verb, have, auxiliary verb, been, auxiliary verb, and then told, main verb. So that's something to be aware of. Then we look at how natives mix up it's without an apostrophe and it's with an apostrophe. So it's without an apostrophe is a determiner and it's with an apostrophe means it is or it has. So you've really, I'm just trying to work on some very common mistakes from native speakers. And once you've done these easier exercises, we do go on to something that's more interesting, in my opinion. But I've got to get rid of these very typical mistakes. And I've got to let natives know that these are horrendous mistakes that they need to get rid of. Yeah. Perhaps I'm exaggerating, but of course, they are mistakes. So if you study, then it's going to be an easy exam. Of course, it is going to be an easy exam, so that one's correct. And number 2, its fur is being washed by the tall brown-haired boy. I think my daughter gave me this sentence for the book. And it's this one, isn't it? It's its fur. It's possessive here. The fur belongs to the animal, yeah, and so its fur is being washed by the tall brown-haired boy. Notice the hyphen for the compound adjective. It is very cold here in winter, so we need an apostrophe. It has been beautiful weather over the last few days, so we need an apostrophe. I forgot to bring in my assignment. It is very important, so we need an apostrophe. Something pushed its way, yeah, the way belongs to the something, so it's possessive, through the trees. Its footsteps, yeah, again, without an apostrophe, because the footsteps belonged to the it, and the way through the trees belonged to the it. Yeah, you always have possessive determiner, its, without an apostrophe, before a noun. Its way, its footsteps, its fur. Yeah, you'll always have its and then a noun because it's a determiner, so it identifies or quantifies a noun. Okay, number 7, he saw a dog lying on the pavement. It looked at him sadly with its. The eyes belonged to the dog, yeah, its big brown eyes. We often go to the beach because it is only a 10-minute drive. Note the compound adjective, so it's hyphenated. 10-minute, not 10 minutes, but 10-minute drive. That's a compound adjective, hyphenate. Okay, exercise 5 is very similar to exercise 4 and exercise 3 in that it's trying to get rid of this mistake of mixing up your and your with an apostrophe. Which means you are, of course. Very common mistake, this one. People do it all the time. Yeah, they make this mistake. People make this mistake all the time. So you are going to the party, right? But if you are so fed up, you ought to say something. Your book is going to be published tomorrow. Even though you are right, I still won't follow your advice. So quite an easy one here, guys. I think most people will be able to do this, but I just want, remember this book is aimed at natives, not aimed at TEFL. You know, I'll write a very different book aimed at TEFL that focuses far more on tenses, articles, things like that, because they're the mistakes that foreign speakers make. But this book is aimed at showing natives that they can take any sentence and split it up into its component parts. And that's really useful for improving your own use of language. And it's really useful for improving your writing skills and your punctuation skills, certainly. Okay, so I think that's plenty for your and you are. I think most people won't have any problem with these exercises. But sometimes it can highlight a misunderstanding, so it's quite useful. We then look at this, that, these, those as demonstrative pronouns and as determiners, because if you say this man, that woman, these jeans, those bananas, that's a determiner. But if you say, I bought this, I didn't do that, have you seen these, or where did I put those, then they are pronouns, they're demonstrative pronouns. And so this is a little exercise to see if you can tell the difference between a pronoun and a determiner, because all of these words function as both. But then we go on to, I don't think that's very interesting for us to look at the moment, but I'm just trying to build up the analytical skills necessary for understanding grammar from the very foundation. Yeah, with nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. It's actually a really strong foundation that the wise Greeks built for us. Okay, so we're then looking at whom, whose, and why are these guys important? Well, they're very important because they start relative clauses. That's why they're so important. And what's a relative clause? Well, a relative clause is a big, fat adjective. Yeah, it describes a noun. And they're really important for punctuation because sometimes they're common and sometimes they're not common. But they're really important because they're everywhere in any piece of writing. And so you want to get a good grip, a firm grasp, a good understanding of these clauses that start with who, whom, and whose. They also start with that and which. And so be aware of those words as well. They're called relative pronouns. And so I talk a little bit about relative pronouns. And then I talk about the mix-up between whose, possessive determiner, and who is, or who has, which is with an apostrophe. And we also look at whom, because I know that, for example, the schools love to show everybody that they know how to use a whom. Okay, fair enough, but I still say that listen to the teachers that work at that school. And even though they might manage to get the whom correct in their written communication, listen to their spoken communication, and it's rather obvious to me that it's absent, from everybody's speech. And so I wouldn't get too strict about the word whom. Just my advice. I don't know anyone that puts that in their speech. It's only the schools that put it in their writing, but the teachers don't put it in their speech. And I'm not even convinced the teachers could do exercises like this always. So have a look at this exercise. You've got to choose between who, whom, and whose. So I wanted to find out had supported him. Now, I think the easiest way to choose whether it's who or whom is to ask yourself, is it replacing a he or is it replacing a him? Yeah. Is it replacing a she or is it replacing a her? Is it replacing an object or a subject? That's what I'm saying. And here, what did you want to find out? You wanted to find out who had supported him. So in other words, you changed the who to a he. Yeah? Is it he had supported him or him had supported him? Of course, it's he had supported him. So who is correct. We need a subject. Yeah, I wanted to find out who had supported him, not whom. Yeah, he had supported him. They had supported him. So just who and not whom. And in number two, who or whom did you invite to the party? Well, here you invited him to the party. Yeah, you invited him to the party or you invited her to the party. And so here it's got to be whom. Whom did you invite to the party? Yeah, I invited them to the party, not I invited they to the party. So it's got to be here, whom did you invite to the party? But tell me, show me a person that says that correctly. Just somebody was correcting me yesterday for this particular mistake. And I've got to say, I don't even consider it a mistake to say who instead of whom. I grew up saying who instead of whom. And for me, whom is incredibly posh. Yeah, it really does sound. It has that posh ring to it. But still, I recognize what it is. It's an object pronoun. So whom did you invite to the party? Okay, number three, who or whom is coming with us? Well, he is coming with us. She is coming with us. So who here? Yeah, subject. Number four. Okay, is it possessive? Does a jacket belong to somebody, or is it who is jacket? Who has jacket? Well, it's not who is, who has. So it's going to be whose jacket. Possessive, yeah? Whose jacket is lying on the floor. May I ask, is this going to be whose or who is or whom is? Well, would we say he is calling or him is calling? We'd say he. So this is, may I ask who is calling? And even though you do hear people kind of hypercorrect and say, may I ask whom is calling? They're just trying to sound posh. Yeah, they're trying to sound posh and they're failing because they're missing the fact, the grammatical fact, that they shouldn't use whom in this sentence. It should be who. May I ask who is calling? Is he really the same man? Okay, who or whom I met yesterday? I met him yesterday. I think this was the example that the student said on the comment yesterday, but yeah, I met him yesterday. So is he really the same man whom I met yesterday? Is the correct version in academic English. But in everyday English, we say who, and everybody says it, even though it's wrong. Yeah, even though it's wrong according to the rules of yesteryear. And that's what I'm trying to explain here, that this is this will disappear, the who whom distinction. It really has already disappeared, in my opinion. Yeah. Where to search for idioms and phrasal verbs, David? In my book. Yeah, in my book. I've been given a chance to advertise my book one more time. In my book, that's where you find where you find phrasal verbs. Yeah, right here. I spent a long time writing it to make sure that you have access to this amazing trove of knowledge. And so please come to my website. I think I'll finish there for today. Come to my website if you would like to see, if you would like to buy a phrasal verbs book, or if you would like to buy the grammar book. You can get them both as PDFs or hard copies. It's completely up to you. Okay, so thanks everybody for coming. Thank you, David. I'm glad you helped pass your CPE with flying colours, especially phrasal verbs and idioms. That's what I like to hear. Excellent, David. 230 out of 230 speaking. That sounds amazing. That sounds better than what I would get, certainly. I think I would drop a few clangers. I would make a few mistakes in the speaking, like who and whom, but maybe a few other things as well, maybe far worse than that. So congratulations, well done. And perhaps I'll be along later for another class, but that's enough for today. Please do go and get this book, though, guys. It's an amazing book. Fantastic. It will open your eyes to the wide range of grammatical structures that there are out there. And that really is the aim, to show you all the different types and forms and tricks that writers use with phrases and clauses. So thanks, everybody. Hope to see you all soon.